Good morning. Oh, that worked better. Let's go ahead and get started on time. I appreciate everybody being here. I will say that it's my fault that you're here. And by the end of the day, or by lunchtime, I hope that you will have an understanding of why, okay? Where we're going and what we want to try to achieve and to do. So as we look, can I get the slides up? Oh, there we go. So as we think about why, and I want to go over a little bit, I'm going to take a little bit of time this morning to reiterate our strategic plan. And one of the things you see at the very top, and I'll try to work both sides of the room here a little bit this morning, is we put quality, safety, and value at the very top. And the focus around that is, what are the things that we as a group have clear expectations and alignment on? What are the things that we want to achieve? What do we want to be known for, and what do we want to be able to do? And it was clear: quality, safety, and value. And you're going to see why, for me particular, that's important in a couple of minutes. The next level, the clinician-led, professionally managed. The issue is, this is something that we have to drive and own. This is not something that is a number out there. This is something that is if we're going to be successful, and we're coming off a week of where we did JCHO, okay, JCO, and I want to give everybody a round of applause for how we did. Because it's not easy, but I will say, a couple of the things is that when we were looking forward and talking with them about where we wanted to go, a lot of the things that we're doing, the dyads we're going to talk about later today, and the other work, they considered exemplars of how we engage people to drive forward. And I think that's the second part of this, is how do we engage? This needs to be something that we're doing together as a team. If it's me telling you to do it, and we're going to talk about leadership, because you guys are the leaders that are either going to make this work or not. Now, we're coming out of strategy into implementation. And it's going to be about how do we communicate, the why, the how, and the things like that. And we'll talk about the different parts of that. And lastly, this is an aspect of how do we become patient-centered. How do we get to the point of, this is about the patient, right patient, right place, right time, the things that we want to be able to do to make a difference, for our patients overall. I even listened to Colleen. So along those lines, the key component of what we want to be able to do and achieve is to work together toward these goals. Now, as we know, in looking back, we talked about the Vizient, the Vizient Rising Star Award. We talked about, our U.S. News and World Report. I am very proud of this organization and the people in here. But I will say, in the last 15 years, we've got the Rising Star Award 3 times. Okay? So how do we get the Rising Star Award? We have to rise 20 places and get into the top 25. In order to do that, our path looks a little bit like this. Okay? Because we have to drop in order to rise. So the goal, and we're going to come to in a minute, is how do we sustain? Because it's tough, right? You get up another day and you think about, how do I continue to get better? And again, as a team, some of these things are habits. We're going to be talking about developing processes where we're working together and helping each other get to the right place. And that's a key goal from my standpoint for what you want to be able to do. Can we just keep the slides up? Thanks. So my point is, we're proud and we've done some really good things. This is data on our harm, okay, and looking at the harm reduction that we've seen since fiscal year 16. We had a goal of reducing this by about 30%, and we've seen, a reduction of about almost 27% since 16. So we're going in the right direction. I think the tougher issue is that when we look at it, if you're an individual patient, if we go back to patient-centered, if you're the individual patient that's one of these 216 that has been harmed since July, there's an opportunity. Our goal would be to get to zero, to be able to reduce the amount or the impending issues or reductions in damage. I'll be honest, as a physician, I used to think this was the patient's fault, right? The patient has the disease. But when we start to look, and we start to look at other institutions across the country, we have groups that are getting close to zero harm. Getting close to zero harm. Are they better than us? Are they more focused than us? What are the things that we need to do with your help in order to be able to get that? I feel like the mic's coming in and out. Is that? I can yell. That's the other thing. I do that as well. So the goal for today is how do we become the best at getting better? How do we think of that as a persistence on a day-to-day basis for the work and the things we want to do to be able to make a difference? And again, how do we reduce that harm? How do we make those things and make a difference in the lives of our patients? So the concept, is working at our best, thinking about, not only the best initiative, but where we want to go on quality to deliver. And like I said, as we think about this every day, how do we think about all of those things spinning together to make a difference for our patients? So for me, as I think about this, this is about, as you go back and as we do this thing today and we go back, you guys are going to be the leaders. You're going to be the individuals that are trying to, again, pull your group together to think about how we make a difference. This is a cartoon that says, no one is making you do anything you don't want. It's just we're all headed for Dodge City and we thought you want to come along. And I think the idea of it is influence. And you're going to see that I'm going to have a couple of references around leadership, around military, because that's some of my background. But one of the things they told us early on as an officer is that if I had to give an order, I had failed as a leader. If I had to give you an order, I had failed as a leader, because the why and the direction and the things, if people didn't buy into it, if it was just some random thing to go and do it, we weren't going to get to the place. And so as we think about it for you guys, it's going to be an important aspect for how you believe, how you communicate to your teams about the things we're going to do. And I look at each of these dyads as leaders. Now this is a quote from Eisenhower. You do not lead by hitting people over the head. Any damn fool can do that, but it's usually called assault and not leadership. It's about persuasion, conciliation, education, and patience, and it's long, slow, hard work. And I think the issue of this is we're going to, whenever you think you have communicated enough as a leader, what do? Communicate at least 3 more times, okay? Because it's amazing as I go out and I think I've over-communicated, or I think my face is too visible, which it is, or whatever aspects of that it is, I go out and talk to people and I realize I have not always gotten those pieces of it. And that's where the cascading component of this is important. How does it's not about me giving it to them, it's about them seeing it and owning it in their own local environment. That's a key component of that. And to that, this is from components from Colin Powell. It says that hey, soldiers stop bringing you problems is the day you stop leading them. That is good. People bringing you, it's the same way as incidents and seeing incident reports and things like that. When we're looking and thinking about changing and making things better, that's great. When people are bringing you problems, that's great. When we think about also helping them learn how to solve them at a local level, those are the things we want to be. And so I think the other thing is the commander in the field is always right and the rear echelon is wrong unless proved otherwise. We have to help enable people to be able to work. And some of that we'll talk about in a minute is giving them data, giving them information, and then giving them some support as we want to do that. And Mark Williams and the team will talk more about some of that support in a minute. There's a lot of people will give you different ideas and different goals, if you will, about the principles of excellence. And I want to hit on a couple this morning, relative to it. But I think that, we have to have, again, open lines of communication and transparency. There isn't any deep, dark secret other than how we want to get better, how we want to treat our patients the way we would treat someone that is our family member. The neat thing for me is I go around and I see our friends in the hospital and things, and Mark just showed another comment about one of our teams today that we got. The issue is that what we want to do is be treating those people the same way we would any member of our family. And it is nice to say, you're going to get as good a care here as you are anywhere in the world. And that's what we want to be. We want people coming here to learn from us about how we're going to drive the success of this enterprise. So let me go back. Sorry. If you talk about principle of excellence, 3 I want to hit on. Making constant improvement a focus. That's tough. I mean, it's a tough list, but it is, again, as we think about getting into the groups and our huddles, it is about, again, persistence. It's about creating good, good paths. It's about creating good habits about what we do and how we do it every day. And when we identify things, being comfortable in a group with us raising our hand, and if we need additional assistance, resources, how do we do that? How do we make some of those things work? And I think that's a key component that we want to be able to do. We want to help, as I just said before, you and the rest of our teams solve some of the, the key components at the front line. And then lastly, this is either, if it's going to work because it's going to be a team effort. We have sent people around to other places to try to see what works. And what we're doing is bringing back some of that as well as giving it a UK flavor. Giving it, again, some of the things and building on some of the things that have worked for us. And I think as we go forward, a key component of this is going to be engagement. Today, you're going to get you're going to probably hear a little bit from me, a little bit from some of the team, but then you're going to be working with each other. This is about learning and engagement and then carrying this forward. This is the tough thing about quality is it doesn't have a beginning and an end. That's some of the downside of JCO, right? JCO's over. Now we can go back to doing it the way we want to do it every day, right? I mean, and I think the aspect of that is we can't. We used to hide at my old place, I won't mention the name, we had places where we stored everything when we know JCO was coming, right? It would go into the closets and into a storage, and then, 2 days later, it would all come back, right? The hallway, you couldn't walk through the hallways, after JCO had come. I think the idea is if that's not good when they're here, why should we be going back to something else that doesn't work? How do we do that? And I think that's the idea of trying to get better every day. Now, transition a little bit, because why do I think this is so important from my standpoint? This is some articles that went out talking about, adverse cerebral outcomes after cardiac surgery, in an article that we published back in the 90s about what was the stroke rate, what was the rate of encephalopathy and other things after cardiac surgery. And I think some of the reason that I do this was information published from databases. This wasn't a big randomized trial. This was information published because we're learning, and we learned and took that information and why things were happening to our patients. The component of trying to get better is understanding, is information, is to be able to give that information out to people as we want to try to do that. And that's, again, that is some of what, my career is. How do we focus on outcomes? Not process. How do we focus on outcomes? What's the patient outcome, and how do we make it better? How do we make it like we were the patient, our family's the patient, and we want to drive that? And I think, we're in the process, and this is a slide I pulled up a couple of days ago, and it's not very good quality, so I apologize. But, it is the concept of, as we're pulling data together and putting it in a data warehouse, and, Mark probably hates this slide, but, again, it's part of, he loves it, I'm just teasing. But again, one of the issues is we started this a number of years ago, and we've gone through a phase. This is the phasing, if you will, the analytic, what we call an analytic journey. And so you're going to start the data warehouse. And the first thing you have is all this hope and excitement that we're going to have all this information, and it's going to be easy, and it's going to work, and we're going to get the data out exactly when we want it. And then we go into this despair and finger pointing. Well, it's not helping. I can't get information. I've heard a lot. We can't get the information that we need potentially on a day-to-day basis to do the things. I think again, staying with this and coming to the next phase, a key part of what we want to do, we have two phases of this, really three maybe. One is we want to be able to get you the information in the data, okay? So that's going to be a key component as we come out, is making it easy for you at a unit level, at a department level, to be able to get more information to make good decisions, okay? I think the second piece of that is to develop the teams and the infrastructure, the dyads, to help act on that information. The third piece, or it's kind of the tools and the information or the support when you have questions for you to say, here's the data, I've got it, how can I move or change, or what is the other, and again, whether that's a performance improvement engineer, whether that's coaching, whether that's other pieces, how do we do that so that this continues? Because otherwise, giving you data and you say, that's interesting, right? Data's good, I like data. What do we do with it? How do we use it? And I think that's going to be the opportunity and the challenge for, say, what made this change, right? Or how can we change that data to the place that we want to get? Because it's not a number, it's a patient. So this is, again, as we think about leadership, and I'm going to get the hook in just a second that I'm going too long, but these are some of the things when we think about change and leadership that you have the opportunity to influence. As we look at this, you see that, normally when you start a change, there's kind of this big, there's a big loss and recovery. And in each phase of this, whether it's in the anticipation phase where it's important that we communicate why and what we're doing, or the letting go, facing the fact that things are different, oh my goodness. How many times have we heard this is different than what we were doing before, right? It's different than 10 years ago. And then disorientation, reappraisal, and recommitment. These are opportunities for you as leaders to differentiate what that path is. Because if you're the one saying, oh my God, this is different than it was, okay, that's the direction it's going to go. That's that deep chasm that we're going to go into as a group. And I think we have to, you define this. And that's a key opportunity for you to make a difference. So I'm going to end here and turn it over to Mark. But the bottom line is things are changing, okay? How we get reimbursed, value-based care, data and information, and what the expectations are from all sides are changing. Our ability to change and adapt and be ahead versus behind is a key component of that. Our strategic plan is set up to help us start in that direction. As we move to ambulatory care. I mean, those are other things, those pillars below are to help us also be ready for the future. But this is a key component, is how do we get the best we can be today and drive that forward. Mark?